Ross.
Anyone watching the Chancellor's...
Thank you.
Anyone watching the Chancellor's autumn statement will look at what that is delivering, rather than the narrative from the fibbing First Minister who has been caught out so many times, because the narrative from the Chancellor today is a UK government that is increasing benefits and pensions in line with inflation, that is increasing spending on health and on education, that is delivering £1.5 billion of extra support to Scotland and is investing in the future of our economy. And the First Minister had a very, very long narrative, but zero answers. That's what I'm desperate for in here, is finally an answer from Nicola Sturgeon. But the reason she didn't answer is because her government, in the same time that the UK government has delivered 7 warships, has delivered 1 ferry. 7 warships compared to 1 ferry. And now the UK government will build another 5 frigates here in Scotland, but we don't know when the SNP will actually deliver and complete a ferry. Their failure is having a real impact on people and the livelihoods right across Scotland. Almost, yes, really, Cabinet Secretary.
Members,
yes, Cabinet Secretary. Because almost half of all
excuse me. I'm simply not having members shouting at one another across the aisles. Can we please hear one another when we're speaking?
The Cabinet Secretary is not just shouting at me. She is shouting at the island communities who are crying out for support from this First Minister and this government. Because before I was interrupted by the Cabinet Secretary, I was going to say half of Highlands and Islands businesses said that ferry cancellations are posing a risk to their future. Yeah. And just this week, we've heard from islanders who are again enduring food shortages. The First Minister might not want to admit that her shipbuilding record has sunk the case for independence, but will she at least accept that her government's failure to replace lifeline ferries is doing massive damage to our island communities?
First Minister.
Yes, I have said on many occasions that the impact on our island communities of the delays to the ferries is deeply regrettable, which is why the government with Ferguson Shipyard is focused so much and so hard on delivering these ferries. But Douglas Ross comes here and lauds 5 Type 26 frigates, and he is right to do so. I've welcomed that announcement, but tries to make a comparison with ferries. I think he probably, before doing so, should have reflected on the fact that the first of these Type 26 vessels will come into service 8 years after it was planned to do so, and at a significant cost overrun. So if he wants to trade these things, then he should at least understand the facts that he's basing his argument on. And secondly, Presiding Officer, I've already talked about the impact on our island communities, and I repeat that. But what is having a significant impact on the lives and the livelihoods of people across Scotland is what the Chancellor of the Exchequer is currently setting out in the House of Commons. If Douglas Ross wants to talk about interruption to food supplies, for example, across the whole of the UK caused by Brexit, then perhaps we might focus on that. Or the £55 billion black hole at the heart of UK finances, largely caused by a combination of Brexit and Tory economic mismanagement that the Chancellor has just said is being filled by tax rises and spending cuts, more than half of it by spending cuts. So budgets for this government, set at a time when inflation was 3%, now being eroded by inflation at more than 10%. That is having a devastating impact on people, on businesses, on public services across our country. And when we consider all of that, Presiding Officer, it is no wonder at all that Douglas Ross did not want to come to this chamber and talk about any of the harm the Conservatives are doing to people across Scotland.